since Roman times, one strip of sand has separated the Mediterranean Sea from the Thau Lagoon. This is the largest body of water in the Languedoc-Roussillon region, stretching for 7,500 hectares. The waters are salty, making them perfect for growing mussels and oysters. It's 9 in the morning, and local oyster farmer Annie Castaldo is busy on the shoreline. After 18 months out in the lagoon, her oysters have finally reached maturity and are ready to be harvested.
They're beautiful, Annie.
Yes, you see the colour? You can see that they're full of mud. They'll now pass through this machine.
They first need to be washed before they can be separated.
It's good to have an oyster which is clean, and before they can be sold, they have to be rinsed with high-pressure water from the lagoon, never with fresh water.
40% of the turnover of Annie's oyster business is generated from the Christmas period. Before arriving on our tables, the oysters have to be flawless.
There are some oysters that are attached to the mother oysters, and we have to separate them. The aim is not to damage them. Then they get a quick scrub before they go in the bucket.
They might well have been grown in the Thau Lagoon, but these oysters have a more exotic origin.
The oyster that we breed is not the natural oyster from here. Whether it's a Marine-Oléron or a Bouzigue oyster, they're all oysters native to Japan. It's like a wine and the region it comes from. From the moment these oysters are grown in these waters, they have the taste of this lagoon. And if they're bred elsewhere, they take on the aromas and flavours specific to that place.
It was a taste and flavour that the Romans relished as well. In the town of Metz, archaeologists like Ronan Bourgault are digging deep to try and understand the history of these precious shells.
They were flat oysters back then.
And how old are they?
Well, the remains where these ones were discovered date back 2,000 years. Mussels were eaten in the 1st century BC, and lots of oysters in the 1st century AD. There's no evidence of the breeding of oysters, however, so we're wondering if wild oysters were harvested or if they were bred.
But oysters weren't the only delight enjoyed by the Romans. They also produced their own wine that was exported throughout their empire in the 1st century AD.
There you have the remains of a vat that's almost 2 meters tall. These huge jars called doliums could hold more than 1,000 litres and were used to ferment the grape juice.
Out in the middle of the lagoon, a very different kind of exploration is underway. Scientists here have come across some seahorses. Caroline is one of the marine biologists that often takes part in the identification process.
You really get to see that they actually exist. And they're a nice fish to look at. They're interesting, they're calm, and it's soothing to be alongside them underwater.
Not everyone gets this rare chance to plunge deep into these waters. After just a few minutes, the first seahorse is spotted. These delicate creatures are not shy and adapt well to the presence of divers. These researchers say the Thau Lagoon has its own species of seahorse.
In Europe at the moment, there are 2 species of seahorse, the long-snouted and the short-snouted, that you find from the Netherlands to the Black Sea along the Atlantic and Mediterranean coasts. Genetically, there's a difference between the seahorses found in the Thau Lagoon and those found at sea.
That makes them a unique asset for the biodiversity of marine life here. As well as being a living laboratory for scientists, these waters are also a paradise for fans of sailing. Michel and Danielle have come out to enjoy the morning sunshine on the Françoise, a vessel built in 1957.
Why is the mast adjustable?
Well, in sets there are lots of bridges. Whenever we move from the sea to the lagoon, we have to lower the mast. You see over there, Daniel? Let's head that way.
An aeronautics engineer by trade, Daniel can't resist the more simple pleasures of these wooden boats.
They're a living thing, and they're what pleases us the most, even if these aren't competition yachts. In keeping the tradition alive, there's this notion of duty and respect. On a beautiful day like this, with a bit of wind, friends around you, and the creaking sound of the rigging, there's nothing better.
They're separated by centuries from their Roman forefathers, but Michel and Daniel stretch their sea legs much in the same way, as the gentle Mediterranean breeze fills their sails.